Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about new beginnings. And we're going to jump right into a reading to start it off from Mark. And this is Mark chapter 1, verses 9 through 15. Right here. About that time, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee, and John baptized him in the Jordan River. While he was coming out of the water, Jesus saw heaven splitting open and the Spirit, like a dove, coming down on him. And there was a voice from heaven. You are my Son, whom I dearly love, and you I find happiness. At once the Spirit forced Jesus out into the wilderness. He was in the wilderness for 40 days, tempted by Satan. He was among the wild animals, and the angels took care of him. After John was arrested, Jesus came into Galilee, announcing God's good news, saying, Now is the time. Here comes God's kingdom. Change your hearts and lives and trust this good news. So we are going to look at this reading in another way through a roadmap that follows Jesus's journey. Give me one moment, I will get my screen going. All right, so this is sort of a map that maps out where Jesus went in the passage we just read from Mark. So he starts out in Nazareth, right, Galilee, and he goes to the Jordan River. And what happens there? Well, a couple things. He was baptized by John, and then he hears the words from God, where God names him God's Son. And it is this that prompts Jesus to head into the wilderness, into the desert. How long was he there? For 40 days. And while he was there, he was tempted by Satan, and he was among the wild animals, but the angels helped him through that time. From the wilderness, he goes to Galilee. And it is there that he proclaims good news and he teaches others. So this was a really important time for Jesus because he was just beginning his ministry of teaching and healing. Now, to make this new start, this new beginning, he had to leave a lot of things behind, right? Whenever you start something new, if you're going to have to leave the old behind. And so he was leaving behind his being near his family and his friends. He was leaving behind his work with Joseph as a carpenter, and just in general, the security and comforts that home offers. So why might he have chose to make this new beginning if he had to leave all these things behind? Well, he heard God calling him, so he wanted to answer that call. He was also aware of what his cousin John was doing, and he wanted to begin teaching others about God's ways too. He knew that John had been arrested, and he wanted to continue the work that John had started. So while Jesus was in the wilderness, here he is all alone out there all by himself. So you can imagine he had lots of time to think and lots of time to pray. And he did. He might have thought about his faith, how he was going to lead his life once he emerged from the desert. And where should he go next? Okay, he's in the desert. Then where does he go? What does he do? And he was probably thinking about all these things and maybe about how he would handle the people who would be upset with him as well. Now, the passage that we read, it says that Satan tempted Jesus, but it doesn't give much details about that, does it? So what might he have been tempted to do? Maybe to abandon his faith or not to listen to his calling, or just to be more of a superhero instead of the humble teacher that he was. But he resisted those temptations. And when he came back from the wilderness, he said, at the end of his time there, close the page, he says, now is the time. Here comes God's kingdom. Change your hearts and lives and trust this good news. Now we are beginning the season of Lent, and Lent is a time to travel with Jesus. So just like we traveled with him today from the Jordan River to the wilderness and back to Galilee. So think about the time that he spent in the wilderness and that time of thought and prayer that he had there. It prompts us to think about and reflect on our own lives and our beliefs. And in this time of Lent, which is a time of preparation, it's a time of preparation for Easter that focuses on reflection and renewal of our faith. And in this time of thought and reflection, it's a good time to think about our own, as I said, our own lives and beliefs, and where we might want to make new beginnings ourselves. But of what things in our lives might we want to change? So we can use this time of Lent to be thoughtful about our lives, just like Jesus was during his 40 days in the wilderness. So I want you to do an activity, and I want you to make your own life roadmap. So just like we showed the roadmap of Jesus, I want you to draw your own roadmap. So you can start with events that have happened to you. Some important events such as maybe moving or going to a new school or starting a new sport or learning an instrument, maybe special friends that you've made, or family trips, or maybe sadder things like the death of a pet or a relative, maybe special achievements or awards that you've won, but things that that stick in your mind that you remember that have happened to you in your life. And sort of do it like a timeline. So do your little journey, your roadmap, and then put these events on that roadmap as they happened. Now, once you've completed that part of it, the second part is to imagine that you are in the wilderness like Jesus was, and listening to God and listening to his heart and trying to figure out his calling. So for the second part, I want you to think about what is in your heart. What is your calling? What is your heart telling you to do? What new beginnings do you want to make? So as a part of your timeline, the first part is events that have happened to you. And then the next part, I want to think about a new beginning. And a new beginning doesn't have to be big. It can be a small thing. That's what Jesus taught, that a new beginning, he understood and tried to help people understand that a new beginning can be like a seed that starts out small, but that it can grow into wonderful things. So think about just those small little things that you might want to be a new beginning for you that could lead to greater things for you. And once you've thought about that and decided what that is, write it down on your roadmap in either words, or you can just draw it in symbols, whichever way most appeals to you. And if you'd like, you can share it with someone else. But if you just want to keep it to yourself and keep it personal, that's okay too. So it's something that you can also think about. And once you think about those new beginnings, you can think about during this season of Lent that is coming up, about new beginnings you can make during this time of being thoughtful. So that's all for today. I hope you have a nice, wonderful, reflective, and thoughtful time during Lent. And maybe you're beginning to embark on some new beginnings. And stay warm, stay kind, be kind to yourself, and be kind to others. And I will see you next time.